Miss Brittney Reeve, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I've known you for a couple of years now, but directly related to us doing work, pretty much.
BeauxJax.
Yeah, events and stuff and marketing and all that, and pretty much nothing outside of that. But we've had some, conversation back and forth, and I've heard things. There have been key points to make me interested and want to hear more about your life. So I want you to tell me all the way from the beginning because you've told me some things, like I've been through some things in my life. Stuff has changed. I have a new perspective. I have new passions, all these things like that. I want to know how that happened. So let's go.
All right, let's do it. Okay, well, I was raised here. I've lived here my whole life. But growing up, I grew up without my dad and wasn't raised in church. And I think just as I started hitting that like middle school, high school age, I started to realize there was something missing in my life. But at that age, I wasn't really sure.
All good.
What all that was. Sorry about that. So, I noticed, like, now that I look back on my life, I noticed I was always, like, seeking attention. I wanted to be the center of the attention. I wanted everything to be about me.
Was that, like, from early age?
Yeah, for as long as I can remember. I had this, like, bright pink glitter sign in my room that said, "All about me." I look back on that, and I'm like, wow, like, vain, girl. Like, so I look back, and I realized, like, I really was just seeking a certain kind of love that no person was going to be able to fulfill. But that always led me to turn into guys. So at a very young age, like middle school, always had a boyfriend. Obviously not super serious then. But then as high school, like very serious relationships at like the age of 15. So I think for me, what really kind of started my rough past is when I was 15, I fell in love with this guy, and he was, to me, like, he fulfilled every need that I was wanting in my heart. And we dated for a little while. He was 4 years older than me. He was 18. I was 15. And early on, we started being intimate. And I got pregnant my freshman year of high school. And that was a very obviously traumatic thing. It was one of those moments where you don't think that'll happen to you, but it does.
Yeah. And you were what age? You were 15?
15 years old, yeah. And I tried to hide it for a little while. I really thought I dodged a bullet. We skipped school one day, just full of great decisions, and went to the Crisis Pregnancy Center at the time. Now it's called the Care Center. Mm-hmm. And did a pregnancy test and all that, and it all came back negative, and I was like, praise the Lord, like, so glad. And then just moms and their intuition. My mom was like, "Brittney, something's off with you. Like, have you had a period?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? Everything's fine." And she's like, I'm concerned. And we took a home pregnancy test a couple of weeks later, and I was pregnant.
So your mom knew about it this whole time? You wasn't hiding it from her?
No, she didn't know.
Oh, she didn't know. You and him took a pregnancy.
Him and I, sorry. Okay. So we did that, and I don't know if you're familiar with anyone that's ever been faced that decision, but it's a tricky one, like what to do. There's a lot of views on a lot of things. And at 15, honestly, I was just terrified and really wanted it to go away. And my family and the guy, his family, they all came over and we all talked about it. And really, everyone just came to the decision that an abortion would make this go away. It would just take it away. He could graduate, go to college, start his dream. I could finish high school, having a normal life, and everyone just kind of decided. I don't want to say anyone made me do it, and I don't want to say I tried to stop it. Like, it just was what it was. So yeah, I had an abortion at 15, and it changed me. For me, I feel like at the time, in my eyes, it was the worst thing you could do. Like, it was.
Why do you think that? Like, that you're not now, but then, like, your mindset then, what makes you think that is, that decision was wrong? Because for me, I have no skin in the game. I'm not a female. I can't procreate.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no opinion. My opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But from hearing someone who's experienced it and done it, and also you're not at full adult development in decision making. So, like, yeah, anyways.
I think that at the time, the process itself is shameful.
Okay.
You walk into the doors. It's no longer open anymore. It's what is that place called? Hope.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
Like women's clinic. You walk in there and it's dark, and the lights are like that real like yellow, low vibe, and everyone in there is either crying or scared, and the process is terrible. And when the process is over, you just, I don't know what made me feel that way. I felt empty.
Yeah.
I felt shameful, and I've hated the whole process. And when it was over, and then you realize what you've done, and you know there's no going back, and you can't change it, like it is what it is. So I just tried to like shove it down, just shove it down, and move on with my life. Went back to school, kept doing it. I didn't tell many people. I mean, like maybe one person. So I kind of went through that alone for a long time. And after that, I think I truly just believed like you've done the worst thing you can do. Like in my eyes at the time, I felt like I had committed murder. And like, so just nothing mattered anymore. If I wanted to be with that guy, I was going to be with that guy. If I wanted to go hang out with that guy, I was going to hang out with that guy. I just started living this life that like it just was self-destructive because nothing else mattered. In my eyes, I did the worst thing you could possibly do. So like, YOLO, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
I graduated high school, and I met another guy that I fell in love with, and he was a big pothead. I'd never seen drugs. I'd always kind of steered clear from that. I mean, not intentionally, just
marijuana.
Yeah, just a lot of So I met him and started smoking weed, and then that turned into everything else that follows. I stayed with him for years and did lots of drugs and.
Let's talk about them. Let's talk about them. I want to hear all the bad stuff, if you're comfortable doing it.
Yeah, because
people need to hear this stuff. You're experiencing it, and maybe you've not talked about it in depth, and so whatever you feel comfortable talking about,
I wouldn't say like. I'm totally comfortable with it. I think, how people always say that marijuana is not a gateway drug?
Yeah.
In my life, it was.
Yeah.
I know for some people it isn't, but for me, it 100% was.
Gotcha.
I started smoking weed, and then the guys would start taking Xanax, take some of those, then led into pain pills, lots of that. And then after pills, it rolled into like ecstasy.
What kind of pills were you taking? Like
just Lortab, Percocet.
Yeah. The stuff that was popular when we were growing up.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
And then X.
Then I rolled in past that kind of stuff and into the ecstasy, and that rolled into shrooms and LSD, and that rolled into even harder things: cocaine, crystal meth, like
whoa,
all the way.
Really,
all of it.
You went all the way there.
All the way there. The only thing I never did was heroin.
Whew.
Yeah, and I lived that life for a couple years.
How old were you?
17, 18, 19.
Okay.
Those few years, 17, 18, mostly. I lived I did a lot of wild stuff. And honestly, like, there was really no stopping me. Like, I, at the time, didn't really think I was doing anything wrong. I was living my best life, partying, doing my thing, being dishonest and unloyal, and just living for myself.
Right.
And I would say I think a lot of times you don't realize this, but subconsciously you're just numbing the pain. Like, I was hurt on the inside. I made a really bad decision when I was 15 and I couldn't let it go. And after that, it was just like nothing else mattered. Like, this makes me feel better. This guy makes me feel better. These drugs make me forget about it. Like, and that's just what happened.
Yeah.
And I did that for a while, and I think what changed is I got pregnant when I was 19. And obviously I quit doing drugs. I was pregnant. And
that's not an obvious decision because a lot of people don't.
They don't.
So, yeah.
You're right. And so for me, I still loved the guy I was with, and he started selling drugs by this time and was in that game. And after I got pregnant, obviously it changed for me. I couldn't do drugs. I was carrying a baby. I had my son, Caden, And I know now that it was all just the Holy Spirit working on me, but at the time I didn't know. My desires just changed. Like we had our son, and I still messed around with things after that a little bit, but not near the same. And his dad just hadn't gotten out of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was ready to kind of move into a different mindset, and he was still in his. And so obviously our past changed, and we separated about a year after my son was born. And I moved in with my mom, and she helped me pick up all my pieces and put me back together. I still worked in the bars and still drank and partied and did all that kind of stuff, but it had just really like dialed down from like that heavy stuff. I wasn't doing hardcore drugs anymore. And you know, I still just lived this life of party though. Like I'd still drink and go out till 6 a.m. and party and come in hungover. And then I was kind of a shitty mom because I was hungover and too tired to make my kid breakfast, you know. And so I kept living this life that just, it started taking over on me. It was wearing me down. And I worked at this place called Fat Daddy's on the boardwalk.
Yeah, I remember that place.
It wasn't there long.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, what year was that?
Had to be like
2009,
like 2010. Yeah. It had to be somewhere around 2010. Sounds right.
Yeah.
And it was downstairs from the Funny Bone.
Right.
And the owner of the Funny Bone at the time, his name was Rick Eisen. That's how I met him. He'd always tell me, like, he drank and partied with me too, but he loved the Lord, like loved it, and he's very open about that. And he'd always say, Britt, I go to this church called the Simple Church, you got to come. And I'm like, I'm not going to no church. And he worked on me for probably 6 months. We'd go out and drink, and he'd be like, hey, where are you going in the morning? I'll see you at church. I'm like, absolutely not. I would always say the same thing over and over. Hey, Rick, if there is a God and he is what you say he is, I don't belong there. I had this mindset of, do you know what I've done? Like, do you know who I am? Like, and he'd be like, yeah, you're awesome and you need Jesus, you know? And I love the dude. You know, I'm so thankful for him because he was what started that for me. And it took a while. I mean, like I said, 6 months. And then finally, just the life of drinking and chaos. I was at the bar one night, stayed out till 6 a.m., again, got just completely shit-faced, and then things just started like falling apart. I got in a fight with this girl at the bar. Believe it or not, it was Haley.
Really?
Yeah.
What? How did
So let me back up just a smidge.
Oh, man.
The guy I was dating and then married and had Caden with, he was roommates with Beau for a short period of time. So that's how I met Beau. And then fast forward all that time, I'm out and I saw Beau sitting at the bar and was like, hey man, what's up? How are you? And he's like, good, nice to see you, you know, hugged and walked off. And Haley's friend at the time told her that some girl was hitting on her man. Yeah. And at that time, you know, this was her before Jesus too. Yeah. She wasn't having it. Wanted to fight at the bar. And I was like, I don't want your man. I was never into your man. Anyway, and then we ended up becoming wonderful friends after that. So that's a funny story too. But yeah, so that night was rough for me. That was my night. That was the game changer for me. I was just crying and just like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what are you doing down here fighting people? You got a baby at home. You're at the bar. Like, wake up. And I called.
There were so many people, though. There were so many people. I didn't have a child at that age, but there were so many people that we were hanging out with. Like, I didn't know you then, but I was in the same. We're in the same age group.
Same crowd.
They were all doing that. Everybody was doing that shit.
Yeah,
like, everyone was just out all the time.
Well, downtown closed at 6, and What's on Tap opened at 7.
Yeah,
that was the real problem.
Yeah, and then parents are at home helping you with the kid. You know, it was just it was an issue. I mean, it may still be. I don't know, but I mean, it definitely was something that wasn't. It was common. I saw. You know, something.
Yeah, and I had to move out of my mom's house all around this time. Once I started kind of understanding these, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And my mom is the sweetest soul, and my dad's the sweetest. They're precious people, and they'll always help me no matter how much I was just messing it all up. So I had to move out and get my own apartment because my mom was she didn't know she was enabling me, but she was, because she was home, I could leave and go out.
Right.
So I did move out, and I called my friend Rick at like the crack of dawn and was like, hey, I've had enough. I want to go to church with you. And he's like, all right. And I rolled into Simple Church like 4 hours later, like never went to sleep, just half drunk still. I put big old black sunglasses on, sat down on the back row. I will literally never forget this day. I come in probably late, and everyone's like, good morning. It's so nice to see you. Glad you're here. And I'm like, I ain't glad I'm here. I'm telling you right now. And then I sit down, just probably like alcohol, just seeping out of my pores. I'm sure I smelled terrible. And Justin was preaching, and he was fired up. Have you ever been to a service at Simple Church?
Yeah, and Justin's amazing. Yeah.
He's incredible. Yeah. And when he gets on a roll, man, he just starts yelling up there and stomping his foot. And he was preaching, and what I remember specifically is sitting there and him saying, what are you doing with your life? Like, what are you focused on? You think drinking and drugs and this guy and that guy and this party life, that's filling your cup? And I was like, I think you might be talking to me. I felt like there was like a spotlight on my head, and I was just like, wow. And I don't know, that day something changed in me. Like, I was like, what am I doing with my life? And it was the start of trying to make some serious changes. I started trying to get slowly out of the bar scene, and I still served and waited tables, but trying to just back it up. And I started going to Simple Church, and about like 3 weeks later, me and Brian met. And so he really got the start of me where, like, I was only smoking weed. I wasn't popping pills or doing this or doing that. And, I think I'm so thankful for the Simple Church, because if I would have gone anywhere else, they probably would have been like, ma'am, you got to go. Like, you smell like straight tequila, like. So that's what started my change, and that's what started my walk with the Lord. And I think for me, like, it took me a long time to figure it out. Just because you find the Lord doesn't mean your shit's just together like that. As the more and more I started to learn who Jesus was, and the more and more I started to read my Bible and start learning to live by faith and trust in the Lord and letting him lead me, the more, unfortunately, and I hope this doesn't like mess with anybody too bad, the more I was aware of my shame and my guilt. And it just, like, I would read these scriptures and I would just notice, like, I am so guilty. Like, I don't deserve your love. And then probably I started going to Christ Fit at this time, and I loved that place. And I started just trying to get like filled up by certain pieces of just positive, like, Jesus following people. And it was good for me. But every time I would get to this place, I'd be reminded that I don't have peace. Like Jesus loves me, but I don't think he's going to forgive that one. Like, do you remember what I did?
All the way back to when you were 15.
All the way back. It all stemmed from when I was 15. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When do you come aware of that? Like, what? Because I feel like you make bad decisions, right? And as you get older, especially when you're a kid. At 15, you're a kid.
I'm a kid.
I mean, you were a child.
My son's 15.
Yeah,
I could not imagine.
Yeah, you are a child. I don't care however one cuts it. They argue with it. You're in a relationship with someone older. Even at 18, he's a child.
He was.
He's a fucking child.
Yeah.
Like you're kids.
Right.
So like, if I look at an 18-year-old, I look at a 20-year-old, I look at a 25-year-old. They're children to me. You know what I mean? Just because the lack of life experience. You know what I mean? And so like, you're at that age. And yes, that it's a bad decision, or you think it is because of what you've been led to believe, or whatever it may be, or your environment, or whatever, or everything you're going through. But I don't feel like you become self-aware of what's dragging you down until you get much older and you go through way more stuff.
Well, I think what happened is, honestly, like, the Lord just kind of wove this whole story together. I started going to Simple Church. I started volunteering. I met Brian, and I started receiving a lot of blessings. Like, I met the man of my dreams. Brian is everything to me. He treats me like a queen. I have 2 beautiful kids who are healthy and sweet and just the perfect children. And I have these great jobs that I loved. I was coaching gymnastics and doing what I loved and working at the Simple Church. And I started working there part-time in the baby room. And I just felt like everything was getting too good for me. Like, hey, I would constantly be praying me like, don't you remember what I did, Lord? Like over and over. And I think what it is he just surrounds you with the perfect people. There was this lady that served with me in the baby room named Karen Callie. She actually was like an advocate at the Crisis Pregnancy Center at the time. And after a couple years of going to church, they always push life groups. You know, they encourage you not going through life alone and doing it together. Yeah. And so I was like, I think I want to do a life group, but Miss Karen, can we do it at your house? Like, I'm still newer to this life. I don't know everything. Like, will you lead it? And she's absolutely. So we went over there. I'm 35, by the way, right now. I was 29 at this time. So a lot of time's passed. And we go over there to do this life group, and we're talking, and I just can't keep it in. Like, I can't contain it. Like, I just felt like I was like a fraud. Like, these people think, oh, look at this girl, she's got it all together now. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm a terrible person. And I walked up to her one day and was like, Miss Karen, can I tell you something? Like, I just wanted to share it with her. And I told her this whole story of what I've done and where I've come from and all the bad things I've done. And her response was, oh, really? Like, really? Did you know that there's a thing called abortion recovery? And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, abortion recovery. Like, you should go. Just like this wasn't even a thing. And I was like, okay, like, I'll try that. Because, you know, the more and more you put yourself in these religious circles, the more and more you realize how other people think. Yeah. And I'll never forget sitting at ChristFit during a devotion when Trump and Hillary were going at it.
That would have been like 2016, right? Or 20, yeah, anyways, yeah.
And we're all sitting there, and I remember whoever was leading devotion, say, y'all, we can't let Hillary in there. She's pro-abortion, or, you know, pro-choice, whatever. And as soon as he said that, it was like I could just start feeling like I was crumbling.
Gotcha.
Like, I start sweating. And then this lady, like 3 people over who can't have children, it's like, yeah, we cannot have that. Like, we do not need abortion to be legal. Like, abortion is murder. And I'm like, you know, like, okay. And then the girl over here that's fostered all these children, and she's like the same thing. Like, if women knew what they were doing when they made this decision, people like me would have taken their kids. And I'm like, I get so upset. I'd just walk out and cry. And they have no idea. I understand where they're coming from and how they feel about it. But as a person who's been through it and feels like it was the wrong decision for her, I don't think that everyone who's had an abortion may feel like that. But for me, it was the wrong decision for me.
Well, it sounds like that decision was, it might have been like decided, you kind of felt pressured into doing it, maybe a little bit because of convenience for both parties. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's just my take on it here real quick. But there could be a million reasons why you did it, even though you felt like it was a bad decision. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I think like why I was so shocked by Miss Karen's response is because of all the people that have talked about abortion. I've heard that it's a sin. You're going to go to hell. Yeah. It's murder. It's this. It's that. And so I would come home, and Brian's so sweet. I mean, for years this went on.
Did he know about it? You talked to him like early on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he knew. And for years, I would be like, I have peace. I have peace. And then I'd be like, I don't have peace. I'm a terrible person. I'd be like, Brittney, please stop. Like, you are not a terrible person. You were a child. You made a decision. Like, and he's always been so supportive, but I could never shake it. I would be fine for 6 months, and then the news would come on, and it would be about abortion, and I'd just start sobbing. I mean, when I tell you it would wipe me out, I could not, like, shake it. I'd call into work. I'd stay in bed all day. Like, the amount of chains and that it held me down by, like, just shackled by this. And so I started the abortion recovery Bible study. It's like a 6-week study. I mean, you could call it like counseling therapy. It's just a Bible study that a counselor goes through with you through the process. And it changed my life, really. Like, it's the first time I had true peace. And when I truly learned who Jesus was and what he says about me and how much Satan is who was holding me down. Satan had truly tricked me into believing like all these terrible things about myself, that I was a murderer, I was a terrible person, like there's no coming back from this. Like, it was all Satan. And it just took me going through this process to realize it. And ever since I've gone through that, and I realized that I went basically almost 15 years, from 15 to 29, almost 30 years old, carrying this sin and this shame, like, for so long, and then finally being able to let it go and be free and know that I am set free. I'm redeemed, like exonerated of all charges. That for me was like, people have to know about this. People have to hear about it. You know, like, if it's 1 in 3 women that have had an abortion.
Really?
1 in 3.
Really?
So you think about how many women you see a day. Like, whether that's the grocery store or in your job or whatever it is you're doing, 1 in 3 women have experienced that.
That's insane.
It's crazy. And you think about how many people talk about it.
None.
None. And so
for fear
it's
of shame and being fingers pointed at them and judgment. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's insane. I didn't know those were the numbers. Yeah.
Is that not crazy?
I would guess like 1 in 10. Me, not knowing anything.
Yeah, 1 in 3.
That's
and
insane.
I truly believe that if women, young girls that are going through this, if they knew the long-term effect of abortion, they wouldn't do it. And the moment you're like, this is it, like, just do it, just get it over with, it doesn't matter. Like, you can trick yourself. But it's really the devil telling you, hey, there's no other way. This is your only option. And that's what breaks my heart. Do you
think it, like, it's a scenario, like, based on the scenario, right? I mean, what do you believe, being that you've done it and you've gone through it and you've seemed to have recovered, I believe that Satan tricks you right into thinking there's no way out. And I think what scripture I always hold on to is Genesis 50:20. What Satan intended to harm me, Jesus used for good. And the reason why is because that was supposed to shake me. That was supposed to keep me shackled in chains, not just for 15 years, for eternity. It did. But it held you down for a long time.
It did, a long time. But it ended up becoming like my greatest weapon for the kingdom, like mass destruction now. Because since then, now we host a life group at Simple Church called Abortion Recovery. I've done 3 of them. They're one-on-one. And we do like every Thursday for 6 weeks, go through the Bible study. And I'll tell you, the last one I went through reminded me of everything. So I met this lady. She was 60 years old, like 60, 60 years old. She had had an abortion when she was like 18. She has been carrying that, everything I dragged myself through, she's been carrying that for that many years. And she finally reached out to me, and we walked through that together, and it was everything to her that it was to me. And I was so thankful to be a part of it. Like, I was so thankful to walk through that with her. She did not feel alone anymore. She had the same result. Like, she felt free. She felt like she truly, for the first time in her life, her marriage was better. She was a better mom. Like, she had no idea how much that had just destroyed her whole life. And I was so happy to be a part of it. It was so great. She was the most precious little lady. And then shortly after that, she it's gonna make me cry, I'm sorry.
You gonna make me cry, so let's go.
She was diagnosed with cancer, and she was always she would send me cards. Brittney, you have no idea. Like, this changed everything for me. Like, she would thank me like it was me. And I'm like, girl, it wasn't me. Like, it was all Jesus. I just walked through it with you. And she's battled for probably 8 months to a year. She's been going through that. And just recently I heard that she was at MD Anderson, and I was like, I need to go see her. Her husband had posted a prayer thing on our Simple Church prayer list, and I saw it come through, and I was like, I got to go see her one time and give her a hug and let her know I love her and I'm praying for her. And I drove all the way to MD Anderson and went and visited her, got to give her a hug. She wasn't really awake, but she heard my name and heard me, and her face just lit up and smiled. And I was just so thankful that I got to see her. And she passed away just a couple weeks later after I saw her.
I'm extremely particular when it comes to my vehicles, and I only recommend those who are the same way. That's why I always recommend SBC Autos. They take pride in their inventory, from badass four-wheel drives, clean classic cars, and even your everyday grocery getters. They have it all. No hassle, no BS. SBCautos.com.
And I think what just reminds me of how the Lord can use anything, whatever you think is broken or dirty or nasty or like the worst part of you. He used that part of me to be a part of restoring her life. Her husband told me that she literally had never thought she was worthy of any peace or any joy. It ruined her whole life, and 2 weeks before she met Jesus, she got peace on this earth. And I was like, whew, okay, this is why.
And you got to be a big part of that too.
Yeah.
Which is, that's a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, going through something, I couldn't imagine. I don't have the capability to even fathom these emotions, but going through something like that and carrying that weight, you carried it 15 years. She carried it, I mean,
yeah, like 40
her entire
something
life,
years.
her entire adult life.
Yeah,
I mean,
the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just to be a part of that, I'm just so honored that the Lord would use me like that. And then, so I just look back now and I'm like, I see it all. It's so clear to me now, like, if anyone is going through that or struggling with abortion, or you can fill in the blank on the sin, adultery, or addicted to porn, or whatever it is that you struggle with. Like, everybody struggles with something, and everyone has this sin in their life. None of us are perfect. We're all human. We're all going to fall short no matter what. But just knowing that, like, the devil does not own you, and that's what, like, I want people to know, is the devil doesn't own you. He didn't send anyone to die for you. He gave up nothing for you. Jesus did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And God did that. He gave his only son. And just knowing that the devil cannot afford you, and that whatever it is that people are going through or have experienced, or whatever has got them shackled down, knowing that, like, the Lord not only will love you and forgive you and show up with mercy and grace, but he wants to use you, because you're not the only one with whatever it is you're going through, abortion, whatever, so.
Yeah, I think it's something that's important. I think religion, it has its place in society, how it's placed, but also I think it could be used as something to separate people, because we see it all the time where people point at something, like you say in that conversation, where people were basically talking it down and making you feel that way, and not knowing, not knowing everyone's thought, and that seems to happen a lot. And it's just, it's not even from a religion standpoint, it's from an ideology standpoint. You have a group of people that come together, and whatever it may be they think that's wrong, they project that against someone else. And in the grand scheme of things, we're all human. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can't move forward and have a productive society if you don't forgive those things and figure out how to get past those things.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, even all the way down to someone, killing someone else. Like, there's ways that, those people have to deal with that the rest of their lives, and there's consequences for that, and whether they deal with it or someone deals with it for them, you know what I mean? Like, there's just, it's interesting how no matter what group of people it is, that there's always a group of people that will just always shun someone. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, because I think the reason why I like having this conversation with you is I think that you don't think that way, and you don't look at anyone that way. Right. But there's a lot of people that seem to grasp the Christian ideology that also want to constantly point fingers and not deal with their own problems and project everything on someone else. And and it's like, I'm sure it's like that in every religion. You know, it's not just that one, you know.
And I think, like, looking back at what I said about that one day when I was at Christ Fit, those ladies weren't trying to hurt me.
No, I mean, I work out there. I love that place.
Yeah,
it's
love
not,
it.
No,
and
but it's just,
no one is intentionally doing that, but also I think that's why it should be talked about, because they don't have awareness. They didn't even realize how much that hurt me. They didn't know I called in that night, didn't go to work, like couldn't get out of bed, just like, you don't understand, and you're not gonna understand if it's not spoken of and it's not talked about, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And here we are. You pulled through.
I did. And I think that, you know, it's just so important that people realize everybody's got something, because it's easy to say me now, for example, and think, oh, this girl, she's got this good job and this great family and that smile on her face, and she goes to the simple church. She just doesn't even know what it's like to experience things. Like, yeah, we all got something.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, yeah, you've done worse drugs than me, and I've done a lot.
Hey, I'm not proud of those.
I'm not either.
I'm sure some people will hear this and be like, I had no idea.
Well, I mean, it's just, it's important for people to understand that firstly, everyone comes from somewhere, and it makes it way more impactful to have a conversation or to, you know, interact with someone who's actually experienced things, because then you don't see everyone as a robot.
Right.
You know, just a smile, like you said, just a smiling face that her life's great. She has the white picket fence. They have good, they're making money. They're doing good things, you know. People see that and they just shut off and say, well, I can never achieve that because I have these scars. Right. Right. And if you don't share the stories and the experiences, then those people may never get to achieve what you have achieved. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's unfortunate, but it's the world we live in, right? Yeah. Because everyone goes through some shit. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And not everyone can talk about it, and it may take someone, you know, 42 years like it took that lady, which is, you know, I've had this conversation with people. It's the worst thing ever. Can you imagine all the things you want to do in life and you never do them or never achieve them because you don't want to deal with the, you know, the inconvenience, you know, or the uncertainty that comes with making a decision to deal with those things? Yeah. Like, if you want to say, this is a very minute change compared to what you've been through, but like, say you want to up and change your entire career path because you're just not happy anymore, but you don't do it because you're already halfway through retirement, and you're like, well, I'll just ride this out. So then you're miserable for the next 15 years of your life. Then you retire and you're full of regret because you didn't do anything. And maybe then at that point you're physically incapable of doing anything. Right. And then at some point you get, you know, you're 80 years old and you're sitting in a nursing home or wherever, someone taking care of you, and you're full of regret. Yeah. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's something that it plagues our society, because I feel like that we get on like track of doing things that we think need to be done. And sometimes we live selfishly, but at the same time we live selflessly, where if I make this decision, it may affect everyone else the wrong way, or may not look, you know, or it may not make everyone else feel secure, you know, or whatever it may be. And it pushes all what you need aside. But I know that you making the decision to work on yourself and figure out your shit is literally a blessing to everyone that comes in your life now. Dang. You know what I mean? Think about it. It is. Because if you never got your shit together, you know, you're sitting here, you're going to be the person that's still out at the bar, the people that are out here partying that are 50 fucking years old, that look, nothing against those people, but I'm saying that's all they do every single weekend, and they have nothing to live for, but they go into their mundane jobs during the week, and they are full of regret. You know, they're full of regret. They've never made the decisions they made, they wanted to make, because of, you know, whatever maybe they're dealing with, they're holding in, you know, or never getting that invitation. Yeah. You know, I mean, how many times did you get that invitation before you went to?
A long time. I got asked for 6 straight months. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And it's just all Jesus. It really is. Yeah. It's just all Jesus.
And it doesn't have to be, people are so scared of religion. You know, they think it's either one way or the other. But you have to find self, right? If you don't find self, then you can't find anything else. So until you're sit down and real with yourself with all your shit you got to deal with, you're never gonna take any other ID in.
And I think a lot of people, it's the fear of being exposed too. When you start to acknowledge some of the things you're holding on to, like being exposed and how other people are going to view you is scary. I remember the first time I opened up about this. Justin did a video and played it at church in front of like 2,000 people, and I thought I was going to throw up, like just so worried about what everyone was going to think of me. I think that is a big part of it. Like when you step up and finally start to acknowledge it and just have these wounds out for everyone to see, it is scary. But I mean, like I said, if you don't do those things, like then you don't have your story of.
Well, you don't. I mean. You have a weapon now, like you said. You have a weapon. Before you had a wound. You turn it into a weapon.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
And now you're doing awesome stuff. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's get my tears out of my eyes real quick. Let's talk about some real shit. Not real shit, other stuff.
Yeah.
So Honduras Well Project.
Yeah.
You had an event last night.
Yeah.
I went to it. It was awesome.
Thank you.
How much money did you guys raise?
$22,000.
That's awesome.
Thank you. That will fund 3 water wells.
Okay. Well, I want you to talk about this in depth and kind of educate everyone on what you're doing and how you found out about it.
Yeah. So I found out about it. Haley and I go to Simple Church, and we were in a sermon Justin was doing, and he was talking about charity water. It's a similar thing as Honduras Well Projects, just a more global one. They're based in like Africa and stuff like that. And they were sharing just some statistics about how many kids die from contaminated water. And I mean, it's a lot of children. Like,
I want to say she said like a couple thousand a year.
Yeah, like
women and children.
No, just children.
Oh, just children. Oh, it's just children. Okay,
1,000.
That's crazy.
1,000 children die a day globally.
Okay, but in that country, a year.
Yeah,
which is still a lot.
And then women and children are the ones that go and get this water, so they miss out on school and work because that's what they do. Is they have to travel, walk, and on average, they're walking 3 to 4 miles a day. And when we started realizing kind of what was going on, we're kind of trapped in our own little world over here. You know, we think our biggest problems are we used to party too much. You know what I'm saying? And then our eyes get open to what's going on the other side of the world, and it rocked us. It really did. Me and Haley were devastated. I mean, Haley, at the time, her son Hayden was like maybe 4 or 5, and it was a child under 5 dies from this, and we're like, wait, what? And so we came home, we made our husbands watch it, and we're like, you got to watch this video we saw in church. And you know, we literally cried on the floor watching this again for the second time. And we're like, we got to do something. But at that time, this is before like BeauxJax, any of these restaurants or anything like that. And we didn't have a ton of money. And Haley was like, you know what we can do? We can walk to Dallas. And I was like, what? I don't think we can walk to Dallas. That's like 300 and something miles away. And just like, okay, well, what can we do? And so we figured out that women and children walk on average 118-ish miles a month.
Okay.
So we decided we'll do like ultrathon type thing, and we'll walk and try to get people to sponsor us. Let's do 118 miles. I think the fastest we can do it is 3 days, and let's just do that. We're going to walk to Texas, we're going to walk to Arkansas, and we're going to come back. Everyone's like, y'all are nuts. And we're like, you know what, we're going to do it because we want people to sponsor, and we want to raise money, and we want to be a part of this change. And so we did that in 2018. We did a 118-mile walk. We raised like $14,000 walking. People just would sponsor us, and it was pretty brutal. Haley and I had no idea what we were doing, and we were not prepared. It was rough, but it was great. And we gave that money to our church. And at the time, we had no idea, but the people, or like the organization that drills in Honduras, our church partnered with was called Living Water. And Living Water had decided they didn't want to be there anymore, and they were pulling out. And so all the people in Honduras that actually do the drilling, they were losing all their equipment, and they were all losing their jobs. And these 2 couples started their own nonprofit called Honduras Well Projects, and they were going to try to step in and see if they could, because they, you know, when you go on these trips, these people become your family. We didn't know that at the time. We had no idea. But so we gave our money to church, and our missions pastor was like, hey, we already have a trip planned and paid for, and we want you to go to this trip. But the money that you gave, can we use that to fund the drill for the new people? And we're like, what? So what we thought we were raising to just drill one well is still to this day a part of drilling all the wells in Honduras right now. So that was super cool. And that was a big like reassurance for Honduras Well Projects that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And that, yes, this is where the Lord wants them. So we got to go on our first trip, like the following year. And it was so cool. It was so incredible. I learned so much. You go into a mission trip thinking, here's all the things I'm going to do for you. Like, I'm here to do good, you know? And then when you get there, you realize you got so much to learn. This ain't...
Well, there's skewed opinions on things like this too, because like you look at like, okay, here's these privileged white people going across the country to push their religion on people who really don't care and they're just having a hard time. But I'm just saying, I hear, you hear these opinions, you see these things, but what you guys are doing, I mean, is actually something that is needed. It's not it's not just going there and sharing your faith, but you're also going there and solving a problem.
Yeah. And these something I learned from my first trip is we're in this community that's kind of like a U shape, and there's all these little like houses, if you want to call them houses. They're like built out of like muck and a mess. So they make a U, and none of these houses have a kitchen. They have one kitchen at the very front in the center, and all the women, that's where they all go and they cook together. Okay. And then they bring it all to their families. And the whole community is just such a unit. They do everything together for each other. It's not like these are my groceries and those are yours. Some people have no money, and so the people that have more this month, they funded it. I started thinking about it. It reminds me in Acts, I don't know what chapter. I suck at quoting scripture, but in Acts, at the beginning, the early church, that's what they did. Everyone would come to the altar with whatever they had, whether it was land or crops or cows or whatever, and they just gave it, and you just, wherever it needed to go is where it went, you know. And I'm like, man, we are nothing like that over here. We are some greedy people. This is mine. Get off my grass. Don't walk over here. You know,
your
like,
dog shit my yard.
Yeah. The amount of your dog shit in my yard posts on our neighborhood page.
That's every neighborhood. That's like the best thing ever.
So for me, it was a big eye opener. Like, hey, Britt, you got a lot to work on. Like, look at this community. You know, they don't have clean water. You know, they're broke, they're so poor, and they're smiling, and they serve each other, and they love each other, and they are a family.
Well, it's important that people understand. Yeah, it's community. It's community, and they're one. But we're so plagued with dealing with putting everyone. We create our own problems here that aren't really problems, and we're plagued with that based on material items and based on opinions of others and based on. You know, everyone wants to talk shit on social media, but social media is just a huge amplifier of everyone's business being put out there, and then opinions coming back, and absolutely no accountability, right? Yeah. So we're plagued with that. So all the depression and all the shit that comes with all those things we do to ourselves. You know, of course, there's some deep-rooted issues that people deal with, you know, from, you know, the past and stuff like that. But all that stuff, they don't have any of that. Yeah. They don't have any of that, so they don't have those problems. They just have, they're living, and they just need to provide and grow, and you know, and they do it together. Yeah. But she was talking about this, and I had to ask you about like the amount, what the kids have to go get the water every day.
Yeah, the kids and the women.
That's their job, right? Yeah. And while the men work all day long, and the wages of men at most is like what, $20 a day or something.
Their wages are $10 a day at most.
At most, okay.
At most.
And she said something, and it was like crazy to me, is that they take the same route to get the water every day. Mm-hmm. And there's predators that will prey and take these young children, and
they'll wait by the river because they know these kids have to come. You know, their mom's either home with the new baby, and the dad's gone, so the 14-year-old and the 7-year-old go fetch the water, you know, 1.5 miles, 2 miles down the road, and they'll wait for them and know that, and they
have
do exactly what you think a predator would do.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah. And there's no resolve there because they're just trying to live.
And you think about it, they don't have another option.
Right, what are they going to, you know?
And you think about it, and it's like, you hear what I struggled with and how long I carried that. that was a choice that I made. Regardless of what we want to look at it, I made that decision. They did not ask for that. You know what I mean? And that's what's hard for me. Like, there's some rough stories when you go. And I think that's something why, like, my point last night at Wine to Water was encouraging people to go. We need your donations. We need it funded because they need water. But it's so much more than that. While the guys come out, they miss work all week and drill with our drilling team. The women that are on the trip, we get all the women together and we just talk to them, and we'll usually have a couple people play with the kids, and that's like the only time the women get to be without their children. And we just, like 2 trips that I went on, I just started talking to them. I don't even speak Spanish, I'm just trying my best, and I got a lady over here interpreting for me, and I just started sharing my heart. I never even said the word abortion. I just said, is there anything that you've ever done in your life that just you carry so much shame with? And these women fell apart, and just were waiting on someone to share that with them, that they were not alone. It was okay, that Jesus loves you. He's faithful. He's going to restore you. And being a part of all that, like, it makes it so much more than water. Like, water is the initial step. But then what that clean water brings is, for one, it answered their prayers, and they know that Jesus heard them and he provided for their needs. But then a step further, like, we get to know you, and we get to love you and know you by name. And if we know you by name and it feels this good, know what it feels to know that Jesus knows you by name, and the impact on going is just life-changing. So we went again, and we did another walk in 2020. That time we raised like $30,000. We doubled our money. We were so excited. Gave all that to Honduras Well Projects. And then our team just walked again in 2022. I did not walk. I drove because I had hip surgery. But yeah, and we're doing another walk next November. So if anyone wants to join us, 118 miles.
What's the route? Like, what do you do?
So we quit walking to Arkansas because of the hills.
Yeah.
We started turning around over there. Yeah, it's brutal. Like, once you get past like Austin and Ida, we turned around. We started walking back. We're like, we're going to walk that far. And once it starts doing this, we're going to come on back. So this next walk we'll probably do, mostly local routes, just so people can drop in and join us when they want to.
Yeah. Well, and you run too.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot. How did that happen? Where'd that come from?
Well, I ran cross country and track in high school.
Me too.
Did you?
Yeah, I don't look like it now, but yeah.
You're too jacked.
I sucked. My best time was like 21 minutes.
Oh, dang.
I went to state, and I was like, I shaved it down from like 25 to 21.
Did you do like long distance and track?
Yeah, Halton. I went to Halton, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I did the 1 mile and the 2 mile and the cross country in the off season, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much what I did too. Yeah, that's how I got into.
And so you just kept running?
Yeah, I started back running like after high school. Obviously, I went through all my little spills, but I started back running when I was like 24, and since then it was just gotten into all the things. Done 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. I got into Spartan races for a while. Then I did a half Ironman. That was fun.
That's something to be said. Yeah, that
was a good one.
Awesome. Like, tell everyone what that consists of, because most people don't know.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
It's so bad. So you have a 1 mile swim, like a 50.
To put that in perspective, I did a 500 meter swim. I don't remember what it was. 200 meter. I just did Wad Gods, and Billy and I did it, and I almost drowned just swimming like my 100 meters or whatever. So I can only imagine doing a mile swim
with like thousands of people just smacking
there's no
you in
way.
the head.
Like that itself is the most impressive thing to me, because I thought I was I literally wanted to quit the entire time. Like, Billy had to sit there and like hold me to get me through, and I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous.
It was awesome. It was great.
So you do the mile swim, and then you do
a 56-mile bike ride.
56 miles on
and
a bike.
And then you follow it with a half marathon.
Right, which is 13 miles, and no breaks in between.
Just about a minute to transition.
You're trying to get best time.
Yeah,
that's insane.
That was pretty insane. That was one of the hardest things I'd done for sure.
When did you do that?
2018.
2018.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't done one since. That was so consuming because you're training 3 sports. Like right now,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
that's
running,
something. That's something you train for all year long, just for that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you can't be doing other types.
Well, and CrossFit's got me in that.
Oh yeah, they're insane.
They're like, hey, do you want to do a half Ironman? I was like, I've never done a triathlon. They're like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
We're signing you up. Come on.
Yeah, Trey was telling me about it. He's like, man, yeah, you telling me how to swim. I'm like, look, man, it's a week out from the competition. I'm not going to learn. Like, I'm just going to try to make it.
I didn't know how to swim when I signed up for it, and so I was learning about drowning. Like,
what's efficient? You have to turn your head and take your breath.
I got
and all
it down
that.
now.
Yeah, that shit. Like, I don't.
Once you figure it out, the swim ended up being my best part. I smoked the swim on that race. Yeah.
That's the one that I think I would have the worst luck with because I swim like most people swim like this. I swim like this.
You're dense.
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
dense
I don't float well. But yeah,
Not
that's something like. I just want to put that in perspective because you've been through a lot of shit and you've came out of it. Seems you have a great story, but you also are continuing to push yourself and push the boundaries and do things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's mental fortitude.
Yeah, and it's just good for me. It might not be running for everybody, but for me, running is my mental escape. You know, it keeps me good, and I do like to push myself, and I always want to keep doing more and trying to be the best version of me. We got a lot of growing to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back to the well thing.
Yeah.
How long does it take to drill a well, and how deep are they?
They depend on when you hit.
So you just go until you hit some water. There.
Sometimes it's like 60 feet. Sometimes it's like 130 feet.
And are you visiting different villages or towns every time you go? Because I would assume once you get a well in, they're taken care of.
They are, but you can go back and visit. So I just went back to Honduras maybe a month or so ago, and I went and visited some of the wells that we'd already done, and that is a cool experience to be able to show back up again.
And see what they progressed, because I can only imagine, like, what was the metric she was discussing last night about the price of water for them and the access?
Yeah, so it's like $10 cost is how much they would have to spend to provide drinking water only for the week. So that's a whole day's wage for them. So you would just imagine
just
whatever
for drinking water.
Just to drink. Yeah, that's not to wash and do all the other things.
Well, all those douchebags over here have a gallon of water just chugging on it all the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
and
that may be they're drinking water for the entire week, 1 gallon.
What's so embarrassing is that I'm such a water snob. Like I'm like,
oh yeah, you gotta have your Fiji or
all the things.
Yeah,
but yeah, so it's cool to be able to go back and show back up and do all that again. But I want to tell you real quick. So when we went back, what's super cool is you're not there to like save anyone or be this change in their life. You walk alongside them. And the cool part of that is witnessing what they do next. When we came back to this one village, they had built this huge water tower where they pump all the water into their water tower, and they had the PVC distribute it to everyone's
all they needed was the water.
Yeah, and then they took it off
because they don't have the means or financial or physical means to drill the well.
Correct.
But once it's there, you let them do their thing.
And then they do their thing, man. We got there, and that we're at one of them. They were in the process of building it. At another, they had built the tower before they ever even got the well. I'm like, that's faith. That's living on faith right there. How
many villages or towns or whatever these provinces or whatever they are, how many are left there that need water?
There's a lot. I wish I had a number, but there's a long way to go.
So how do you guys pick where you do these at?
Okay, so I just learned about all this when I went. I got to see like the inside. So there is a water commissioner, and he kind of decides. So there's a lot that goes into getting a well. Whatever the well goes on, it has to be like a property that has been given for that. So there has to be a deed on that. Right. Each community has to have their own water commissioner as well to like be in charge of the project. And then
so there is some red tape involved, from their government.
Yes.
Okay, so you guys act as you come in and say, look, we're here to do this project, and based on whatever they've decided, that's where y'all will go.
As long as we can go there. So like there's one, we went to visit some of the wells that have been done, and then we went to visit wells or villages that need them. And we went to one that was just chaos. They have no water supply whatsoever. They just hope a water truck comes and drops the barrels of them, and that's it. And as we were trying to talk to them, the whole town was just kind of against each other. Well, if they would let us do this, and it's their fault that we don't have that, and this and that. So when we were there, we just got to talk to them like, hey, y'all together, come together as a unit, put one person in charge, who's going to be the water commissioner of this community, figure out who's going to donate the land, let's get that deed, and when we have that, we'll make the next step. And so you're, like I said, you're walking alongside them, and then they do all the things that they've got to do, and then we show up with the next step.
Right. So you're just there to solve the problem, but they're figuring it out amongst themselves.
Yeah. We're here to help them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do all of it with us. Yeah.
And then from there, like, how long do these wells last? Do they dry up? Do we have to re-drill wells?
No, not really. Sometimes they just need maintenance, but
Okay.
Honduras Well Projects has maintenance crews. They'll come, like there'll be a trip that's just for maintenance.
Gotcha.
Or well repairs. Like when the hurricane came, that was a couple years ago. You know, all of them needed to be flushed out and cleaned and done. So that was right after our second walk. And so a big portion of our money went to maintenance.
Well, what if, like, people probably have this question too, like, if they're interested in going, they realize that they may not have absolutely no idea what they're doing. There's someone there to guide you along the way of how you can help. So everyone has something they can do.
There's a team of men and women that live in Honduras. They are Honduran, and this is their job. Their job is to drill. Their job is to run the women and children's part of it, and that is what they do.
And you just go there and help them.
Yeah, and they
say, hey, what do we need? Do we need to carry this pipe?
Yeah.
Do we need to hook this up or whatever?
Yeah, it's awesome too. And they'll translate for you. So if you don't have to know Spanish. You can come, and they allow you to do the whole thing. You can do as much or as little as you want.
And if someone wants to donate to you guys, where do they go?
HondurasWellProjects.org.
Okay.
And then there's a donation link on there.
And they're on Instagram,
Facebook. Yeah, they have their own website. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say? Any last
Thank
words
you for
or
having
anything?
me. I appreciate you asking me to come. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I had a good time.
Thank
you choked me
you.
up a little bit. We're ending on a good note. So.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.